Your wife just turned 41, maybe 42, and something shifts in the room before you even notice it. She stops laughing at your jokes. She starts staring at herself in the mirror longer than usual. She complains about wrinkles that no one else sees. She suddenly buys new clothes, not for you, not for work, but for her confidence. And then slowly, the real change begins. She's scrolling Instagram at midnight, smiling at photos of shirtless 27-year-olds who don't even know she exists. She binge-watches shows where the women her age magically attract men half theirs. She follows fitness influencers, buys collagen powders, starts talking about feeling alive again. And out of nowhere, she decides to hit the gym. But only during the hours when the place is packed with young, muscular guys who look like they live there. At first, you think it's harmless, midlife glow-up, good for her. But then, she stops touching you, stops asking about your day, stops caring if you go out or stay home. And one morning at breakfast, with the same calm tone she uses to remind you to take out the trash, she says, "I don't know who I am anymore. I need space." 2 months later, she's posting pictures from bars, cocktails, new hair, new outfits, and there's always some younger guy half visible in the background. And you realize something horrifying. She didn't just want space. She wanted escape. Escape from aging, escape from routine, escape from the man who knows exactly how old she really is. Because here's the truth no one dares to say out loud. When a woman over 40 suddenly desires younger men, it's not empowerment, it's panic. It's her last attempt to outrun the one thing she fears more than death itself, becoming invisible. She's not craving youth, she's terrified of losing hers. The younger man isn't a soulmate, he's a mirror she uses to lie to herself. When he looks at her with a spark, even a fake one, she feels 25 again. Desired again, validated again, and that feeling becomes a drug. But like any drug, the high fades, and the crash hurts like hell. Because young men aren't falling in love. They're sampling an experience. They're enjoying the story, the novelty, the attention, the benefits. And she mistakes that temporary thrill for rebirth. So while she tells everyone she's finally living her best life, she's really running from the truth she can't face. It's not you she hates, it's herself, aging, changing, losing power, and you became the easiest place to project it. And the cruelest irony? The more she chases youth, the older she looks doing it. The more she tries to feel empowered, the more desperate she becomes, and everyone sees the truth except her. And this is only the beginning.
Here's what happens next, the part most men never see coming. Once a woman over 40 gets a taste of attention from younger men, her entire psychology flips upside down. It's like watching someone step into a carnival mirror where everything is distorted, except she thinks it's the first time she's seeing herself clearly. She starts believing she deserves this new life. She convinces herself she's finally awakened. She tells her friends she was unappreciated for years. But what's really happening is far less spiritual and far more primal. She's high on validation. Younger men don't fall for her personality. They fall for what she offers: attention, praise, money, emotional labor, and zero commitment. She falls for what they symbolize: youth, possibility, and sexual relevance. But here's the sick twist. The validation never lasts, so she needs more. She starts editing photos more aggressively, dressing younger, flirting harder. She becomes obsessed with likes, comments, and any hint that she still got it. Inside her marriage, she becomes resentful. Every flaw in you becomes magnified. Every routine becomes suffocating. Every responsibility feels like a prison. She begins rewriting history. You never cared enough. You never made her feel beautiful. You never appreciated her sacrifices. You never kept things exciting. She creates a villain because she needs a reason to justify what she's doing, or what she's about to do. And you, the husband, become the symbol of everything she's trying to escape, not because you changed, but because reality did. Because no matter how young her gym crush is, no matter how many DMs she gets, no matter how many compliments she collects, she still wakes up in the same 40-plus body with the same fears, staring at the same truth. Youth isn't coming back. And that's when paranoia kicks in. You'll see it in small ways. She starts comparing herself to younger women more openly. She becomes jealous of your female coworkers despite ignoring you for months. She accuses you of things she's secretly thinking about doing. She's spiraling, but to cover it, she performs confidence. She posts self-love quotes that sound like therapy homework. She writes captions about choosing herself. She drinks more wine than before. She goes out more nights than she stays home. She loses interest in family routines but becomes obsessed with nightlife and selfies. She's not becoming younger. She's becoming unrecognizable. And the most tragic part? She thinks she's evolving, but she's unraveling. Because deep inside, in the quiet moments she'll never admit to, she knows the truth. These young men aren't future partners. They're temporary distractions. They don't want her future. They want her right now. Her attention, her body, her resources. She knows it. She feels it. But she can't stop. Because stopping means facing the one thing she fears the most, that she built her entire identity on being desired. And now that desire is fading. And the moment she senses the younger man drifting, even slightly, the panic becomes unbearable. That's when the real chaos begins.
And this is where everything finally comes crashing down. Because the younger man she built her fantasy around, the one she risked her marriage, her stability, her dignity for, eventually does what younger men always do. He gets bored. Not angry, not dramatic, not emotional. Just bored. It starts with tiny changes she pretends not to notice. He texts slower. He cancels plans more often. He becomes busy at night. He stops complimenting her body. He stops initiating sex. He stops asking to see her. And for the first time in years, she feels something she forgot existed. Rejection. But she can't accept it, so she doubles down. She buys new lingerie. She books girls' trips. She gets Botox, fillers, new hair, new clothes, new filters. She tries to be younger than the women he actually wants, women who don't need editing, money, or dim lighting to feel beautiful. He notices. And the more effort she puts in, the faster his interest dies, because he can sense what she's trying to hide. She's afraid. Afraid of aging. Afraid of being replaceable. Afraid that this boy, who she pretended was a man, sees her as temporary. And then it happens. Not with a speech, not with closure, not with tears. Just a short message. Hey, I think we're in different places in life. Translation? I found someone my own age. And just like that, she becomes the very thing she mocked in other women. Another middle-aged woman dumped for someone younger and fresher. The hit is nuclear. Her ego explodes. Her confidence evaporates. Her fantasy dies in seconds. And suddenly she remembers the husband she left behind. The stable man. The man who loved her. The man who stayed when her body changed, when her mood changed, when life changed. Now she wants security again. She wants comfort again. She wants the home she burned down. But here's the twist no one warns her about. The husband she hated moved on. Emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. He stopped waiting. He stopped begging. He stopped hoping she'd come back. He found a version of himself he likes better. A version not crushed by her resentment, not drained by her crisis, not living under the weight of her unspoken disappointment.
and she can't stand this. Because nothing terrifies a woman like realizing the man she dismissed no longer needs her. She'll pretend she wants to reconcile, but what she really wants is to erase the consequences of her choices. She'll suddenly be affectionate. She'll suddenly be apologetic. She'll suddenly talk about working on marriage. She'll suddenly miss everything she once took for granted. But she doesn't miss him. She misses the version of herself she was when someone still wanted her. The panic becomes overwhelming. She's not young enough for younger men and not desirable enough for older men. She's caught between two worlds, too old for the life she's chasing, too prideful for the life she abandoned. And in this moment, the truth finally hits her. This wasn't empowerment. This wasn't liberation. This wasn't rediscovering herself. It was a midlife escape attempt, and she escaped into a cage of her own making.
And this is the phase no one warns you about. The return phase. The moment when the fantasy dies and reality finally breaks through her denial. Because once the younger guy leaves, once the validation stops, once the dopamine high fades, she's left standing in the silence she created. And silence is a cruel mirror. At first, she tries to distract herself. She goes out more. She posts inspirational quotes. She buys self-love journals. She signs up for yoga classes she'll quit in 3 weeks. But distraction only delays the crash. And the crash always comes. It begins with the smallest trigger. A lonely Saturday night. An untouched dinner table. A photo of her ex-husband smiling somewhere without her. Suddenly, the stories she told herself don't work anymore. He wasn't affectionate enough. He didn't make me feel special. I deserved more passion. Now the truth hits with the force of a wrecking ball. She didn't leave for passion. She left because she was running from her own reflection. And the moment this truth cracks her armor, panic sets in. Because now she remembers the man she left behind, the man who carried the relationship, the man who stayed loyal while she drifted, the man who forgave quietly, the man who absorbed her resentment like a sponge because he loved her. Now she looks at him differently. But he doesn't look at her the same. He's calmer. He's quieter. He's not angry. That would mean he still cares. He's indifferent. And that indifference shatters her more than any affair, any betrayal, any breakup ever could. So she begins the re-entry tactics, the classic midlife return strategy. She messages him out of nowhere. Hey, just checking in. How are you? Not because she cares, but because she wants to see if he still does. She sends old photos, memories, little nostalgic hints meant to pull him back emotionally. When he answers politely but coldly, her anxiety spikes. So she shifts into emotional manipulation. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I made mistakes. You were always such a good man. I didn't know what I had. But she's not apologizing. She's bargaining with consequences she never expected. The harsh truth begins tightening around her like a rope. He doesn't need her anymore. And nothing terrifies a woman in crisis more than realizing the man she took for granted stopped orbiting around her. So she escalates. Suddenly she wants to work on things. Suddenly she wants to rebuild trust. Suddenly she talks about family, history, second chances. But the man she remembers, the man who would have melted at these words, the man who would have begged, the man who would have done anything to keep the marriage alive, that man is gone. She broke him slowly, and he rebuilt himself quietly. Now she's the one standing in emotional debt. His new life,
his peace, his confidence, his boundaries, is a mirror reflecting everything she avoided confronting. And for the first time, she feels what he felt for years. The exhaustion, the fear of losing someone, the unease of being the one who cares more. This reversal is brutal. She's not used to chasing. She's not used to uncertainty. She's not used to fighting for someone who isn't guaranteed. And this is where her crisis becomes undeniable. She didn't hate her husband. She hated the version of herself she became beside him. The aging, the fear, the unmet dreams, the quiet resentments. She blamed him for wounds she never healed. But now she realizes something devastating. You can run from a marriage. You can't run from yourself.
And here's where everything flips. The moment she never imagined. The moment that crushes the fantasy she built. The moment every midlife runaway eventually faces. He doesn't want her back. Not out of revenge, not out of bitterness, but because he outgrew the version of himself who tolerated being an option. She finally gathers the courage to ask the question she's been rehearsing for weeks. Do you think maybe we could try again? Her voice trembling, her confidence gone, her certainty evaporated. She expected hesitation, tears, emotional conflict. The man who once loved her so fiercely he would have crawled through glass to keep her. But instead, she gets something far worse. Calm clarity. He looks at her like she's a familiar stranger, like someone from a dream he can't fully remember. And he says the words she never expected. I don't think I feel that way anymore. No anger, no venom, no theatrics. Just truth. And that truth hits her harder than losing the younger man ever did. Because losing him wasn't losing love, it was losing validation. But losing her husband? That's losing history. Losing loyalty. Losing the one person who still knew the unfiltered version of her. Losing the man who loved her before the insecurity, the panic, the crisis. She tries everything. She gets emotional. She gets logical. She tries memories. She tries seduction. She tries guilt. She tries tears. But nothing works. Not because he's punishing her, because he's free. And freedom once tasted is impossible to surrender. He's built a life she's no longer part of, a life where he sleeps peacefully, laughs loudly, socializes without fear, lives without performing for approval. She watches him talk to new people, calm, confident, grounded. A man who knows his value, a man rebuilt. And that's when her final realization breaks her open. He became exactly the man she always wanted, but now she's the woman who no longer deserves him. She didn't just lose him, she lost the future she could have had with him. The comfort, the stability, the loyalty, the quiet love that only grows deeper with age. And as she walks away from him for the last time, she finally understands the truth she spent years avoiding. The younger man made her feel desired, but the husband made her feel safe. And she traded permanence for a fantasy that lasted just long enough to destroy everything real. She wanted to feel young again. Instead, she ended up feeling older than ever. She wanted passion. Instead, she found emptiness. She wanted escape.
Instead, she ran straight into herself, and she didn't like what she saw. In the cruelest tryst, she thought she'd broken him, but he's the one who survived. She's the one who shattered.